Okay, so I'm Daniel Markovitz. I'm a colleague with Andrei here at Espresso. Thanks for the invitation. And I'm going to be talking to you about JavaScripting your spreadsheet. Less about JavaScript because I'm a non-technical guy. More about spreadsheet because we all know that spreadsheet like Excel is the greatest software product ever created. And unfortunately, I only had myself to code. But it's true. I mean, actually not Excel, but Google Sheets, because it's live and it's collaborative and so on. So we're going to be talking about Google Sheets, actually not about Java, and the ways about extending Google Sheets. So there are several methods that we can enhance, the experience and the functionality that Google Sheets provide, and most of them you probably already used. Those are code-free, don't require any development. We have add-ons that are usually integrations with third-party tools. We have the macros, which basically is a recording of a set of steps you do in Excel, and the integration with Google Forms. But what we're really going to be talking about is the JavaScript part, the scripting part, that allows us to create custom menus, dialogue, sidebars, custom functions, and integration with Google or external services, third-party APIs. And yeah, I did some development in a previous life, so I have a bit of a knowledge of JavaScript. Okay, so showtime, let's see how this works. And we're gonna be creating a model, an overlay on this spreadsheet that enables me to enter a product, code, and increment its amount. That easy. So there's this script editor here under the tools section that brings up, an IDE that's pretty basic that allows you to, log and write JavaScript to boost, the functionality here. So we're gonna create a new menu entry called tim.js meetup 51 that only has one item that basically logs great success. This is a JavaScript code that actually will run on the server whenever I load this file. So now that I've created that part here, I should see a new menu entry appearing right after add-ons. It takes a bit. It's because of the rain. Okay. So as I mentioned, this is running on the server side, and now I see the entry here and the demo form. I click demo form and I've logged this, great success, but you will notice that nothing will show up in the developer console because, as I mentioned, this is not on the UI side, it's rendered on the backend, which means I need to use their logger from here. Yeah, great success, I see the logs here. It's a bit of an inconvenience when you try to debug stuff. There's also a debugger on specific functions. You can add breakpoints, but I'm not going into those details because I don't really know them. Okay, so now that we have the menu entry, we need to create the HTML form. So I'm gonna create a new file on this project. It's an HTML file. I'll call it demo form. Perfect. And I need to open, in the code.js first, I need to open this demo form. So instead of just logging some things here, I'm calling the show model function that will open up an external HTML file called demo form. And in demo form, I'm going to create an input and a button. So, okay. So I've created an input and a button. No time to code this myself right here, so it's all in cache. And we're going to check how this works. Again, I need to reopen the file because I need to re-trigger this code.js file to be ran on the server that adds an extra functionality on this item, bringing up the model. Okay, it's still raining. No, it actually takes a while until the spreadsheet loads. But once it's loaded, everything goes quite smooth. I open this, and yes, I get an authorization request because I'm using a new functionality that exposes third-party functionalities. I need to authenticate with the user that is an owner on the spreadsheet. This only happens once each time I use a new functionality. So displaying a web form is a new functionality, and then accessing code from the backend from within the web form is another functionality. So there are two permissions that I need to give to this spreadsheet. Okay, so apparently I did some bad coding there, because this won't open. So if anybody sees an error here in the file, please speak now. Okay, let me try to reopen this. Or maybe I didn't save the file, yes. That might be it. Nope. So then I will suppose that demo form HTML. Okay. Yeah, so HTML on demo form. Okay. I'm gonna reopen this to see whether it works. And because I've refreshed the spreadsheet from where I've opened the script editor, that one gets closed automatically. I'm gonna open the developer console to see what kind of errors I have. Okay, we still need to wait for the menu item to appear. Okay, so it works now. Okay, so I want to be able to add in a code and then increment the product counter. So I need to do some more scripting. And for this, I need to create a server on the backend and right here that will do the job. Okay, it's this function here that iterates through all the rows until it matches the barcode that gets sent as a parameter, and then it increments it. Okay, and then on demo form, I need to actually call the function on the backend. That's a non-click on the button. That actually, it's a quite easy syntax, Google script run, and the function call on the backend. This add product function is here on the backend. Okay, so then it should work right now. Let's test it out. I need to refresh again because I've altered the backend code again. But it should be like the last call I make. Okay, so I have this new menu entry here. Still raining. Okay, so I'm bringing up the form. Yes, because now from the form I'm calling a function that's on the backend again. It's the second permission that I need to give to the application. Okay, and these permissions get saved but can later on be edited. So yeah, I can input now a barcode. I'll use this one. So when I click this button, I should see this 28, the counter get incremented. And it does, but with a delay. That lag is because I need to call a server-side function, and then the spreadsheet needs to be live updated. It's the same lag you see when two different users are editing the same spreadsheet until the data is updated on the other user. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I can create an overlay that presents an HTML of my choosing that communicates with some JavaScript that's being executed on the backend. That was a small exercise. Let's see how we can look at Google Sheets in the light of this functionality as a platform, or more like a business CMS, instead of just a math paper for calculations, and see what it provides if we're looking at it as, you know, a platform upon which I want to build a business solution. We have the database. You know, the sheets are the tables. We have the rows and columns, such as in a common relational database. You can actually run an SQL query on a Google spreadsheet. You have the create, read, update, delete UI interfaces in the most accessible interface possible. That's Excel. That's why the tool itself is so successful, because it's pretty straightforward. You have access control, at least basic access control. You have roles and permissions for accessing the spreadsheet, different functionalities or predefined ranges. You have the traceability, so you can see all the changes done by all the users to the smallest change possible, and you can revert to any function. And that's applicable to the script code that I'm writing. There's a version management there. It's not Git, but I'm hoping that they'll work on it. It has scalability in terms of scaling by adding a new Google Sheet. I don't know what are the limitations or how performance impacts, like number of rows and such impacts the functionalities here, but there are very complex ways you can link together multiple spreadsheets. You have the free hosting, of course, and everything we see here is free, and the custom developments. These are just a few of the functionalities. So let's see, like, what's the applicability of this? And we have a case study here. Some friends from the One Move climbing gym. They have a climbing gym here in Timișoara and one in Arad. They needed to build an access control system so they can check whether the subscriptions the climbers have expired or not, whether the entries left, whether they still have entries left or they need to buy some new ones. So they were using Excel, an Excel file, a desktop Excel, and they were providing the climbers with printed papers on which they wrote the number of entries. They were updating those papers on each entry. They were checking those at the counter, time-consuming, prone to errors. The Excel was actually a bulk of several Excels. A lot of manual checks and logging needed to be done so that they can keep track of everything. That was an error-prone process. And of course, they didn't have the flexibility to create the functions they actually needed. So the requirements for the solution were to be multi-location, to cover Timișoara, Arad, and potentially expand to other locations as well. They needed to have some input validations, free hosting and maintenance, and the most important functionality to allow the climbers to self-check-in or provide them with a barcode card that they can scan, and they would be automatically validated whether the subscription is still active or not. And of course, reports and an agile approach so that we can immediately switch from the Excel to a new solution. And most importantly of all, it should have been a free solution. So considering that our effort of development was free, it should have been something quick. And in terms of agile approach, we used transition from desktop Excel to Google Sheets. And we did that on day one, on March. So they already got a new version of their application that was online, and from start it was collaborative, so both Arad and Timișoara could access the spreadsheet. And then we did some input validation, so we created some forms so that they can input the data in these sheets without having to manually edit the sheets, because that's error prone, even if we created a lot of checks and certain validations for inputting data. So if I want to renew my subscription, I need to scan my barcode so that I get pre-filled with the data that the functions find in the climbers sheet. I already have some periods pre-selected based on my current subscription. There are several types of subscriptions that I can make, which they can manually edit and create new types of subscriptions from a different sheet. So yeah, I'm just gonna create a new subscription for me. Okay, and then there's a bunch of other things that gets logged whenever I create a new subscription. That gets logged here, so I can create reports afterwards with the number of subscriptions per locations per month, the revenues, and so on. And then the most important of all is the self-scan functionality, for which we use the Raspberry Pi that in kiosk mode opens up this link with the spreadsheet, and we display the access validation form, where they just need to go to the scanner, scan their cards that have a barcode on them, which I'm doing now manually. And when that happens, the application validates whether I still have an active subscription or not. And apparently I have. I just scrambled the names a bit or replaced them. Okay, so this happens automatically. The text gets selected, so the next user just automatically checks. And whenever a user with an invalid subscription scans its card, there's like nasty beep going on in the speaker, so that the lady at the counter knows that, okay, you guys need to update your subscriptions. So this is basically the solution that we created, and they're only starting to use the second location from next month. We've been testing this in Timișoara so now, and we can do some advanced reports. So probably you wouldn't do a banking solution in Google Sheets, but for most basic functionalities, it's pretty straightforward. And the fact that you can provide direct access to the database to a user that has no understanding of how this works, it's priceless. And then we started creating some reports for displaying the whether, these are the guys that already scanned themselves today in Timișoara and in Arad. This is only demo data that I've added before. This actually is, a copy of the spreadsheet they're using. Okay, and then on the website, the last functionality is that they have the ability to add in their barcode, and then an SQL query gets ran on the spreadsheet with some authentication and gives me the information about this specific subscription. Don't ask me about GDPR stuff, because I won't answer. Okay, so that's about it, and I'll finish with a quote from OneMove. Life's a climb. So thank you. If you have any questions. Shoot.
How's that gonna run on the mobile app? I did some scripting once on Google Sheet, and when I opened that sheet on the mobile app, was not running the script, or it was running from time to time.
Yeah, so I don't think you can add in the menu entries, or you can change the code to a Google add-on, but add-ons are not available on mobile, I think, or something like that. But you can access the spreadsheet in desktop mode on Android or iOS, and then you get all the functionality, but only in desktop mode, not using the Google Sheet application. That's the reason why we use the Raspberry Pi. That's a Linux-based solution to actually display this file instead of using just a tablet or a mobile phone to do this self-scan.
Do they have support for periodic tasks, like can you in the background can you check?
Yes, actually you have like really easy integrations with all of Google's services, so it's easy to like send an email or integrate with a Google slide or a form or anything. And there's the Google processing engine or something like that, I think it's called, that we looked into, that we're going to be using to run a specific function at the end of each day and check climbers that haven't been checking in at the gym in the past 2 weeks, to send them an email, okay, hey, maybe give them a promotion or something like that. So there's, the Google engine for like a scheduler, like a cron type of solution. And then, of course, you can access third-party APIs if you want. You can integrate with your HR tool, for example, to pull some data from there.
On that HTML, can you add any external resources like static files, anything?
Yeah, but not using the code that I just showed. So this function here that loads a different file, it's only working for files within this project, but there are ways to embed external HTML. Actually, this is not code I wrote, because I asked my girlfriend, she's a Ruby developer, to help me with a minor CSS issue. And she said my code is shit, so deleted everything and rewrote the entire application. So, but yeah, there's this create HTML output from file. And as far as I know, this only works for files within the project. But at one point, we did some external embedding here. And there's also a way to alter, the properties of this HTML form, but you cannot make it full screen. There are some limitations to this overlay and what you can create with it. So you can play around with the content, a bit with the width and height within some limits, but then inside, yeah, you can embed third-party HTML. And you can transform this into an add-on and put it on Google Sheets store and make it available to everybody. I guess that's it. Thank you.